I wasn't looking to save anyone that winter. If I'm honest, I could barely save myself. But life has this strange way of handing you the thing you need most at the moment you're least prepared to receive it. And for me, that moment arrived on a night so cold the air cracked when you breathed, in a town so quiet even the streetlights seemed to whisper, "Slow down, you're not alone out here." My name's Reed Callahan. I'm a single dad, or I used to be. 3 winters ago, I lost my wife and daughter in the same week. My wife, Marcy, to a sudden heart failure, and my little girl, June, to complications right after. You don't come back from that hole. You learn to build a life around the missing pieces, but you never actually fill them. I moved to a remote corner of Montana where the mountains swallow the noise, and people know enough to let a man grieve quietly. For a while, that was all I needed. Quiet. But everything changed the night I found them. It was early December, snow falling sideways, wind sharp enough to slice through 3 layers of flannel. I'd been at the ranger station reviewing weather alerts, making sure the roads up the ridge were closed before the worst of the storm rolled in. On my drive home, visibility dropped to maybe 20 feet. I slowed to a crawl. That's when I saw something, 2 tiny shapes near a drift on the side of the service road. I almost didn't stop. Thought it might be debris. Then the smaller one moved. My heart kicked hard. I hit the brakes, grabbed my flashlight, and fought the wind as I stepped out of the truck. The beam cut through snow, and there they were. 2 little girls curled together in a nest of frost and fear. Maybe 5 years old. Maybe 6. Their clothes so thin they clung to their bones. Their hair tangled with ice. Their faces nearly blue. One girl opened her eyes when I knelt. Wide, dark eyes, too old, too knowing. She didn't say a word. She just stared at me like she'd been waiting for someone, anyone, to notice her. "Oh God," I whispered. "Sweetheart, what happened to you?" She didn't flinch. Didn't speak. Just tightened her arm around the other girl, whose breathing was shallow, barely there. I wrapped my coat around them both and carried them to the truck, feeling their weight, far too light, like holding 2 handfuls of winter itself. When the heater kicked on, the older one gasped softly, as if warmth was something she hadn't felt in far too long. "What's your name?" I asked gently. No answer. "That your sister?" A flicker of a nod. "Okay, you're safe now. I'm taking you home." Home was a small cabin I'd spent 2 years pretending didn't feel empty. That night, it didn't feel empty at all. I set them by the wood stove, wrapped them in blankets, rubbed their frozen hands. The older one never took her eyes off me, like she was studying me, measuring whether I was danger or shelter. Finally, after maybe 30 minutes, she whispered something so soft I thought I imagined it. "Harlow." I knelt beside her. "That your name?" A tiny nod. "And her?" I asked, pointing to her sister. Harlow brushed trembling fingers through the younger girl's tangled hair. "Lena." It was the way she said it, like the name itself was a small, fragile thing she was afraid would break. That night, every time Lena coughed, Harlow flinched. Every time I moved too quickly, she pulled her sister closer. I kept my distance, talking softly, letting them warm up slowly. Around midnight, Lena finally fell into a steady sleep, and Harlow's shoulders dropped for the first time. She looked at me, eyes shining with exhaustion and something else, something like surrender. She whispered, "Don't let him find us." Those 6 words rearranged something inside me. But before I could ask who him was, she curled against her sister and fell asleep. I sat there, watching 2 strangers breathe under my roof, realizing the storm outside wasn't half as dangerous as whatever storm they'd escaped. The next morning, I contacted the county. A social worker named Tessa Rivers arrived, a woman with steady eyes and a voice warm enough to melt ice. She knelt in front of Harlow and Lena and introduced herself with a gentle smile. But Harlow clung to me like I was the only branch left above water. Tessa sighed softly. Reed, it looks like they trust you. At least for now. With your background in search and rescue, you're actually eligible for temporary kinship placement, even if you're not related. Is that even legal? I asked. She smiled. Legal enough if I sign the paperwork. And just like that, I became guardian of 2 little girls who didn't speak more than 5 words collectively. Over the next week, I learned a lot about them. Harlow didn't cry. Not once. She watched everything, memorized exits, listened for distant sounds that weren't there. Lena clung to stuffed animals, even though she didn't come with any. I bought her 2, and she guarded them like family. Neither of them spoke much. But both of them hummed. Not randomly, together. In harmony. A soft weaving of sound whenever they were scared or tired or trying to fall asleep. It wasn't a song exactly. It was more like, remembering how to feel safe. I mentioned it to Tessa once. She nodded. Some twins develop their own language. Some develop their own silence. Some. Their own music. She paused. Whoever they belonged to before, didn't protect them. We need to find out who that is. The following week changed everything. That's when they met her. Sage Marley, local music therapist. 32. Laughed too easily. Carried sadness like a violin she'd learned to tune instead of hide. She visited at Tessa's request to help the girls communicate. I wasn't expecting much. But then Sage spotted an old mandolin hanging on my wall and asked if she could use it. I nodded. She sat cross-legged on the rug, humming a simple tune, nothing complicated. A child's lullaby. Harlow froze. Lena looked up. Then, slowly, they joined her. Their humming grew stronger. Clearer. Almost like words were buried inside the melody, waiting to be dug out. Sage looked up at me, tears in her eyes. They're not singing what I'm singing, she whispered. They're singing something they already knew. That moment cracked open something between us, something delicate. Something real. Sage came by every day after that. Sometimes for therapy. Sometimes to check on the girls. Sometimes, I think, to check on me. One evening, after the girls had fallen asleep, she lingered by the stove. You know, she said softly, kids don't attach this fast unless they've been detached for too long. I looked at the girls curled up together like they never wanted the world to separate them again. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted. I barely kept myself standing these last years. How am I supposed to hold them up? Sage smiled. Not the cheerful kind, something softer. Maybe you don't need to hold them up, she said. Maybe you just need to stop running from the pieces of yourself that are still alive. I didn't answer. But I thought about it long after she left. Then came the twist I never saw coming. 2 weeks later, while the girls were asleep, Tessa showed up at my door with a file. Reed, we found something. My stomach dropped. Someone claimed them. No, she said. That's the strange part. She handed me a photo, burned edges, faded ink. It showed a cabin. In front of it, a woman with 2 toddlers on her lap. Same faces. Same eyes. She had written one thing on the back. If anything happens to me, find them a place where winter is gentle. Find someone who's lost enough to understand them. Below the photo was a report. Their mother had died 2 years ago in a fire. And the man who'd been after them, someone named Calvesper, was a trafficker tied to 3 states. He believed the girls saw something they shouldn't have. And he wasn't finished looking. For a moment, the world went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind before something breaks. What happens now? I finally asked. Tessa placed a gentle hand on my arm. You protect them. And we protect all of you. But the next night, the danger arrived faster than any of us expected. It was 1 a.m. snow falling hard. Wind rattling the windows. I was asleep on the couch near the girls when headlights flashed across the front wall. A truck. Dark. Slow. Stopping. My heart slammed against my ribs. I grabbed the shotgun I kept locked near the fireplace. Sage had been staying over that night thanks to the storm, and she woke instantly. "Reed, is it him?" "I don't know." "Stay with the girls." The knock on the door wasn't loud. It was patient. Confident. That scared me more than if he tried to break it down. I stepped to the door but didn't open it. "Who's there?" I barked. A man's voice replied. "Calm. Too calm. You have something that belongs to me." My skin went cold. I raised the shotgun. "You need to leave. Now." He chuckled softly. "You can't hide them. They saw me. They belong with me." My finger curled around the trigger. Then I felt it, small hands gripping the back of my shirt. Harlow. She had stepped out of the bedroom silently, standing behind me, trembling but defiant. She whispered, "That's him." Something inside me snapped, not in fear, but in purpose. I swung the door open just enough to keep my weapon ready. But before I could do anything else, red and blue lights exploded across the snow. Police cars. Tessa's SUV. She stepped out, shouting, "Reed, step back." Officers swarmed the man, dragging him to the ground as he screamed threats I refused to listen to. Within minutes, he was cuffed, furious, and being hauled away. Tessa approached me gently. "You all right?" I looked down at Harlow, who still gripped my shirt like it was a lifeline. "I am now." The case took weeks to clear. Months, even. But slowly, the danger faded. What didn't fade, was the connection. The girls started speaking more. Sleeping easier. Laughing in little bursts that shook the dust off my heart. Sage started spending evenings at the cabin, teaching them rhythm exercises, harmonies, lullabies. And somewhere along the way, she taught me how to feel again too. The girls started calling her Lo, their nickname for her. And eventually, they started calling me something that shattered me in the best way possible. Dad. The adoption wasn't easy. The system challenged everything. My past grief. My solitude. My capacity. But the girls showed up for every evaluation holding my hands. Sage testified. Tessa fought like hell. 6 months later, in a small courtroom with plastic chairs and a crooked flag in the corner, the judge said the words that stitched my heart back together. "Reed Callahan, you are now the legal father of Harlow and Lena." They ran into my arms crying happy tears. I don't know who needed who more that day. Them, or me. Now, before I close this story, I want to leave you with a question that still keeps me up sometimes. Do you believe we find the people we're meant to save? Or do we find the people meant to save us? Because I still don't know. But I know this much. On the coldest night of my life, I found 2 little girls who taught me warmth again. And that feels like miracle enough. Let me know in the comments what you think. Was it fate, chance, or something deeper? And if you've ever experienced a moment that changed your whole life without warning, I'd love to hear your story.